I call Nuk Kurako.
Hai e mihati kia koe e te mana whakawā, huri no e te whare, ka mihi. Sir, before I begin, I too would like to acknowledge the passing of Irema Henare, and in particular his service on the Waitangi National Trust Board since 2007. Anō reira, e te rakatira o te taitokarau, e haere atu rā ki te pāta whakawairua, e takoto mai, takoto mai, takoto mai. Nō reira, e te rakatira, oki i roto i te raki mārie. Nō reira, moi mai, moi mai. E te whānau pani, a kia koe e pēni. Ka nui nui te mihi, ka nui nui te aroha, kia kaha, kia maia, kia manua nui. Nō reira. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to stand and as a member of this House, as the chair of the Māori Affairs Select Committee for the second reading of the Waitangi National Trust Amendment Bill. And I tautoko the previous speakers who have done a sterling job of giving a very good overview of the bill to date. I want to keep it high level but talk about two important things that were covered by the Māori Affairs Select Committee, but also to acknowledge the review, the wider review, which will pick up a lot of what the previous speaker highlighted. Sir, many consider the first Waitangi Day to be 6th of February 1932. Although Waitangi Day was not celebrated annually for another 15 years after that, and even then there were no Māori present. 1932 then, sir, is a special year in Waitangi history. It was that day on which the then Governor-General Lord Bledisloe gifted the former home of James Busby, where the treaty was signed to the nation. The house and surrounding grounds were dedicated as a public reserve and placed under the guardianship of the Waitangi National Trust Board. Mr. Speaker, we have come a long way since 1932. Waitangi Day is now widely recognised as our national day, the day which marks the birth of our nation. The historic treaty grounds now play a central role in our annual celebrations. Mr. Speaker, if Waitangi Day marks the birth of our nation, then the treaty grounds are indeed its birthplace. As such, it is appropriate that we stand here today in this House, having recently marked the 175th year since the signing of the Treaty of Waitangi, to consider a bill which updates and modernises the arrangements for guardianship of this great toka, this national treasure. And sir, that was 79 years ago. The Waitangi National Trust Board was legally established by the passing of the Waitangi National Trust Board Act 1932. The Act appointed two types of members to the board. Under the original Act, the trust deed, there are 8 representative members representing the following groups: the family of Archdeacon Henry Williams, the families of Honeheke, Maihi Kawiti, Tamati, Wakanene and Pomare, Māori living in the North Auckland Peninsula, Māori living in the rest of the North Island, Pākehā living in the Bay of Islands, Māori and Pākehā living in Te Waiponamu, South Island, the family of Edward Gibbon Wakefield, and also, sir, the 8th member, a prominent person in the life of this country, Aotearoa. In addition, there are 4 ex officio members: the Prime Minister, the Minister of Conservation, the Minister of Māori Development, and the Governor-General, if he or she chooses. Sir, this bill is a result of a review of the Waitangi National Trust Board Act 1932, undertaken by the Ministry for Culture and Heritage between 2006 and 2008. That review concluded that there is a risk of an actual or perceived conflict of interest between the constitutional roles of members of the executive and the roles they serve on the trust board. So that is the first point particularly about part of the makeup of the board and the roles. It would not be good enough to just remove the Governor-General and Ministers, as this would sever an important link, a very important link between the Trust Board and the Crown. Instead, the Prime Minister, the Minister for Māori Development, the Minister for Arts, Culture and Heritage will make up a Crown representative group. This group will ensure continued communication between the Trust Board and the Government. In addition, the Governor-General may choose to be an honorary patron of the Waitangi National Trust, and this preserves the historic link between the treaty grounds and the Governor-General, stretching back to the original donation by Lord and Lady Bledisloe. Sir, to replace the ex officio members on the board, 2 members of Parliament will be appointed. One will be chosen by the Prime Minister and the other by the Leader of the Opposition. Of course, members of Parliament can also be members of the Board of representative roles, and I acknowledge Peter Pironi for his work as Chair of the Waitangi National Trust Board. The bill, as it was sent to us on the Māori Affairs Select Committee, also introduced terms of 3 years for board members with a limit of 3 years to be served by each. This was the second point, particularly around tenure. This provision will also be applied to current members of the board. The current term of each member will effectively end on the next 3-year anniversary of their appointment. If on that date they would have served 9 or more years on the board, they will be eligible for 1 further term. Sir, it was suggested to us by the Ministry of Culture and Heritage that we amend the legislation to prevent current members from serving an additional 3-year term. We did consider this change. However, we decided the transitional provisions in the bill, as originally proposed, to strike a sensible balance between complete retrospective application of the 3-term limit and allowing current members to serve a further 9 years. Sir, I come now to the significant amendment which was highlighted by our Minister, which we on the Māori Affairs Committee have recommended. We received a submission from Ara Peter Hamilton, who pointed out the disparity between Pākehā and Māori members on the board. There are 7 families represented on the Trust Board. The families of James Busby, Edward Gibbon Wakefield and Archdeacon Henry Williams are represented by 1 member each, 3 members in total for these 3 Pākehā families. The families of Honeheke, Maihi Kawiti, Tāmati Wakanene and Pomare are represented by 1 member for all 4 families. Of course, the member currently in that role is Peter Pironi. While he is the chair, and some may suggest he is as good as 3 other people, there is an obvious disparity in the representation between Māori and Pākehā. So this sort of disparity in Pākehā and Māori representation may have been a normal thing in 1932, but it certainly wouldn't be accepted if such a trust board were established today. Members of the Māori Affairs Select Committee took the view that this situation is serious, it is unfair, and it should be addressed soon. The Ministry for Culture and Heritage suggested that this representation would be best considered as part of a planned wider review of the role and composition of the board. Sir, the Honourable Maggie Barry has been clear in her commitment to hold such a review. We are grateful to her for engaging with the committee and providing us the details of what the review will cover. Given the wide-ranging nature of the planned review, the Minister, of course, could not be specific about when any changes resulting from the review would come before this House to be enacted. Sir, given the seriousness of the inequity we believe currently exists in the makeup of the Trust Board and the uncertainty as to when the proposed review process would make changes to the structure, there was a strong feeling within our committee that we should take the opportunity we currently have to correct this anomaly. Sir, for that reason, we have recommended that when Peter Pironi's current term comes to an end, his position is replaced by 4 positions representing those Māori families. We acknowledge that this change is not perfect. We do this. It will increase the size of the Waitangi National Trust Board to a size which some would suggest makes it even less effective. But we acknowledge that this may mean that members, sir, representing these families serve on the board for a short period before changes resulting from the review change the makeup of the board yet again. That is really crucial, sir. And finally, sir, I thank my committee, the Māori Affairs Select Committee, the Minister, for all of the hard work that we have done to get the bill to the second reading. And sir, I commend this bill to the House. Kia ora.